fellas. Uh, I just came off of my last low turn railway run uh, of the season, and let me tell you, it was kind of a banger. 55 is going to be my total count for turns here, which is pretty good. So, you know, I'm sure you can tell by the title of the video, that puts me pretty high up in, like, the rankings. I believe I've been keeping track of, like, the top players, most of them. I believe Kacha right now, he's taking a break, but, he's, on pace for, like, a 48 to 49-ish. So he's gonna be number 1 by the time it ends, unless unless there's other people who are, like, just, living under a rock and they don't share their scores. As far as I know, he's number 1. I know of a 53 and a 54, I believe, that exist right now. And I'm assuming a 52 exists. So, you know, that puts me around, like, top 5 players in the world, which is pretty good. Well, probably tied, obviously. 55 is not, like, if we're talking about the highest level of play, 55 is, like, not super difficult, but there's not much time left for Railway. There's only a few days left, so unfortunately, you guys are not going to be able to get, like, extremely low turn runs in now, just because, like, time-wise, these low turn runs take... this run, this is the only run I've ever done with Sinclair, the new Sinclair, by the way. This is the only run I've ever done with the new Sinclair. And I did it on, like, I started it literally as soon as the update dropped, which was about a week and a half ago. It was on the 3rd. So this run took me over a week, about a week and a half. And granted, I'm not, like, a diehard, you know, LIMBUS player. I some days I grind out, like, you know, 2 hours-ish, of, like, just resets and whatever. And some days I, like, go really hard, like I'm, like, 6 hours in or something, or, like, 8 hours in. Again, I'm not, like, I'm not number 1 player in the world material. Like, Kacha is, like, completely a psychopath, bro. He streams every single day for, like, on average, like, 8 to, like, 12, 13 hours a day. So, you know, I'm not competing with him. But, yeah, I see a lot of people, surprisingly, actually, I see a lot of people still scrambling to try and get, you know, try and get their banners, because Railway's almost over, and I guess people were procrastinating, or, you know, maybe they started late, like, I'm a day 1 player, so I have a lot of resources, but, like, maybe, you know, they picked up the game, like, a week ago, and they wanted to tackle Railway at the end when they were the most prepared, you know, when they had, like, the most levels and the most thread, and stuff like that. So I see people scrambling to try and get their banners in. So this is going to be a low turn guide and a retrospective, pretty much, of Railway. From now, you're only going to have a few days, but if you're grinding out for, like, you're not going to be able to get, like, sub 60, or, you know, sub 70 is going to be really hard unless you already started a run. But this video, by the time it goes up, and it's going to be long as shit, probably, because I'm going to be going over every strategy that I used for my run to help you guys get this run out of the way and secure your banner. Because I know a lot of people, you know, if you're a casual player, you're going for, like, you know, just below the 120 mark is enough, you know, and you could just watch my other guides. I'm not super proud of them thinking back, because now I'm, like, I'd say like not a master, but like I've mostly mastered like the line 1 railway. So, I'm not super proud of the old ones because there was information I was missing and stuff like that. Now I know every single fight to a T, and the meta has, settled. The meta has settled. Because there's no more units or anything. There's like the Hong Lu and the Isong Ego, the lost passenger egos that are coming in a few days, but those are not going to be legal for Line 1 Railway, which is, very very nice because then I don't have to do another run. So this is basically where we're at. My other guides, they were talking about, some general strategies like Sinner choices and whatever, but the thing about those guides is that since they've come out, like my first initial one, like my really screwed up guide that like had the right side of the screen cut off and whatever, uh, that was before Chef came out, and that was with defense skill cycling, like the skill discarding was still in the game. Granted, I didn't use it for those tutorials because I knew it was going to be patched in like a day or two after they came out, but now it's like officially gone, and Chef is in the game, and Corp Sinclair, the one who shall grip, is also in the game, and he was a complete meta meta shaker. So I'm gonna go over pretty much everything that I know about Railway. Again, this is mostly a retrospective, all right? Because again, it's going to close in a bit. In a few days, but this can, like, I know people, if you're a casual, again, you're going for like 120, but if you're like a semi like competitive player, like you're a day 1 player but you're not like, a die-hard Rail 1 player, you just want like, a decent score. I see a lot of people going for 69 because it's a funny number, and it's also, relatively challenging. So, you know what, this can probably, it will probably help you a lot on the 69 banner, because 69 is like no sweat, to me anyway. Obviously, it's different for every person, but 69 is very achievable, I think. It will take a while. You would have to play a hell of a lot in the next coming days. If you don't have a run in progress right now, it will be really, really fucking rough. You will have to play like 8-10 hours a day or something, starting from scratch to get a 69, I think, at this rate. So it would be tough, but when I'm like helping other people do Railway, just on my casual runs, like, if I'm screen sharing in a voice chat or something, and they're like, hey, can you help me walk me through this stage, or do you want to do like a demonstration run for Railway or something? I even had someone one time who was like, get on Parsec, and can you just do Railway for me, because I'm just not good enough to do it, and I just want the 120 banner. Can you just do Railway for me? And I just did like a Railway run for them, using like remote control of their computer, which was pretty fun. But for those runs, like just the casual runs with no resetting at all, just a straight run through, I can easily get around like 85, with no resetting or anything. And like, I'm like tired as hell, I'm not focused, and it's not even my like Railway run, so I might might be exposing myself here, but I just don't care as much as if it was my run, you know what I'm saying? So uh you can get like an 85-ish as long as you know what the strategies are. Like, that's the limit of where you need to start doing some RNG manipulation, is around like the 80 mark. Like starting to actually do resets. Before you hit like sub 80, you can do like around 80 to 90 turns without resetting at all, as long as you know what you're doing. So that's what I'm gonna try and tell you guys here. So what we're gonna start with here is we're going to be doing I got my Crypt of the Necrodancer OST, so we can be bopping with it. But first things first, we're going to be revisiting the tier list, because again, the meta has changed and there's new units. So let's reset, and I'll do this live. I haven't really thought about what the tiers are going to be. It's going to be probably top meta, probably, and then this is going to be again don't bother. If you haven't watched my other tier list video for the methodology, then, you know, I'd recommend going to watch that. But we're basically going to be redoing the entire tier list here. You know, just because, what is it? Can I hide the taskbar? I don't remember. Hide bookmarks. There we go. Just to make it cleaner. You don't have to watch the other tier list video, because I'm going to be remaking it from scratch, essentially, here. So, you know, top meta, and don't bother. So, like, you know, in the middle is going to be, like, you know, like, top meta, like, lineup, you know? And then, you know, other options. And then we're gonna have 3 tiers. Alright, we're gonna have the top meta lineup. This is going to be all of the, like, 1 for each center, basically. There's going to be 12 people up here. This is what I recommend bringing top of the meta. And I'm going to go through every single one in depth. All of the top meta ones in depth. And then other options, again, it's up to you. And then don't bother is going to be everything else. So we're just going to hop right into it. I'll try and make it a little quicker. So in my other tier list, I had my personal preference pocket pick for Isong as his base center. And the reason was because of his support passive, where it gives you free sanity at the end of every turn. You know, if they lost sanity, this passive is extremely good. The thing about it is, unfortunately, we are going to be running, not unfortunately necessarily, but we're going to be running the new Gripper Sinclair. And the thing about him is that he, obviously, you know, he wants to be on low sanity, because he has all minus coins and all this shit. So what we're going to be doing for Isong is we are going to choose not to use LCB Center. Alright, we're going to not use it unless, if you're not using the Gripper, if you're using Mariachi instead, you can still use him. But as for his other options, I would steer against 7 section personally. I'm still not, again, it's like in my other tier list, I'm still not super partial to him, but the Blade lineage is probably what I would pick. And the reason is, his support passive is unfortunately pretty shit, but his actual abilities, like his skills, are not terrible. And Isong is not going to get used, mind you, like pretty much at all. There's only one stage where Isong is like best in slot, and that's going to be on the K-Corp stage. Alright? I'll show you. I have all of my screenshots for all of my turns that I took during Railway to show for this video. But for K-Corp, he is legitimately best in slot, and you can see why right here, because you're going to be using his 4th match Flame. Alright? Pretty much every turn. I use it here again on turn 3, and then I use it again on turn 6. So I use it 3 times. And besides that, the K-Corp enemies are fatal to Wrath, and they are fatal to Slash. And then some of them are even fatal to Slash Wrath, like the big guys too. So this skill, Heal Turn, is actually very, very good. And Flank Thrust to finish off a staggered guy, very, very good. The thing that really puts him over the top, well, there's 2 things. Again, you're not going to be using Isong the entire Railway except for that stage. So he's going to be on 0 sanity. like until you get there, right? So let's see if I can turn this down a little bit without muting it. You know what, I can just turn my browser volume down. There we go. Alright, so, again, you're not going to be using Isong the entire time, so he's going to be at 0 sanity, so his early coin rolls, for the Railway, for the K-Corp stage, the coin rolls are going to be very inconsistent, which is where his strength comes in. The Blade Lineage IDs tend to follow the general rule of having a good base power with low coin modifier on all of their skills, which means that they generally they do not rely on hitting heads for increased damage boost on their abilities, or they do not need to hit heads for clashing as much as others, because they have a low coin modifier and high base power. And you might be looking at this skill 3 and you might be going like, dude, this thing is terrible. Like, sure, it has 8 base power, which is respectable. That's pretty good. But it has 3 coins that are +1 each, right? So like it does not actually add up to that much. It adds up to 11 maximum clashing power, which is pretty terrible. This is where the offense level comes in, because he also has an extremely high offense level. Just to put it in perspective, the average offense level that I have source, just trust me, but from what I can tell, just playing the game a lot, the average offense level hovers around 32 to like 34-ish. The highest I've seen is like 41 off the top of my head, and it's only shared by a few different IDs, alright? And this is one of them. Another one is like G-Corp Gregor, is like one of the other ones off the top of my head that are relevant, that have a 41 offense level. This is like pretty much the highest you're getting. So this will translate to, because enemies generally have like, you know, around like, what do these guys have? Let's check these guys. Their offense level is 33. See, so like, they actually, you will get an extra clashing power against them as well, but, you know, his main strength is going to be his skill 2, his skill 3 for cleaning up staggered enemies, and 4th match flame. This thing is really, really slept on, because it's the only AoE slash skill in the game, and look at that, it's slash wrath, which is absolutely perfect. This is why Isong is best in slot for stage 9, in my opinion. It's because of this. He is absolutely disgusting, and the thing is, you don't even need to uptie it to level 3 in order to use it, because when you uptie this ego, the only thing that it gets, I'm not even kidding, the only thing that it gets from getting uptied is it goes from heads hit inflict 2 burn to heads hit inflict 4 burn, which is like, you get 2 extra burn, which when you're hitting 3 people, it's 6 extra burn, which, you know, is nice. Obviously, you'd rather have it than not. But 100 thread, not good enough for 100 thread in my opinion. Did not stop me from uptying it, obviously, because, you know, I'm gonna be, you know, you want to be at full power if possible, but you do not need to uptie it. That's also another reason why it's so strong. You don't need to uptie it, and it'll be good no matter what. So, absolutely fantastic ego for that stage in particular. It's kind of just the perfect storm, you know? And another thing about how the meta, shakes out is, the big meta shift between, Hong-Lu's. We'll talk about it later, but having a Pride skill 1 is also a huge, huge, huge strength, for this ID. So, this guy is basically just kind of a perfect storm of, everything you could ever want in an ID for stage 9. So, this is why I choose Blade Lineage. Again, 7 section is pretty decent, just because of his skill 3, though. He has, 32. Again, it seems to be the average from what I can parse. But his Sin lineup is, like, pretty mid. His damage is, like, pretty mid. And it's just, he is just Hexnail at home. Like, that's his entire purpose. You have this thing, too, which is, like, pretty decent, I guess. But, it's mostly just Molinet. So, I'm not super partial to him. I don't really like him that much. He feels bad to use. He feels like he doesn't do anything, So that's the Isong. That's the reason behind the Isong pick. Faust, you already know. If you're going for 69, you either can use LobCorp. I wouldn't really recommend it, personally. Not saying it's bad, but, I wouldn't really recommend it personally. But obviously you're gonna want to take Gripper. Just to go over really quick why Gripper is so good, in case you already somehow don't know. It's because of, her debuff on her skill 2. Her entire, character is just her skill 2, basically. And then sometimes her skill 3 will come up, because it's Pride. Skill 1 is pretty awful, to be honest. And, her support passive is actually super annoying. You think that it's good, but it has extreme anti-synergy with the new Sinclair. So this thing is actually super fucking annoying to play around, because there are some stages where you want to bring Sinclair, and you don't want to bring Faust. And you will have, like, 3 Lust skills, because Lust is pretty common. And you'll just screw your own Sinclair. 15 Sanity is huge. It would be a really nice heal if it wasn't for the fact that, Sinclair wants to be at low. So this is, like, super troll. Unfortunately. But besides that, her offense level is very good. Like, above average enough to usually get 1 extra clash power in 90% of clashes. So, it's just a pretty good overall. Execution is kind of a mid skill. Obviously you want to trigger the on kill as much as possible, because it helps buff the rest of your party, but it's kind of hard to work around. So, think of it as a bonus more than anything. You don't really have to play around it. I never had to play around it, I don't think, but it is something worth, keeping in mind. But the main thing is the gripping, and the other main thing is the fact that she has a Pride skill, which is extremely rare. So, just something to keep in mind. Other than that, her egos. All 3 of her egos here are really good. We don't count Telepole because it contests with Fluid Sac, which is just strictly, like, way better. All 3 of her egos are very good. This is a spammable AoE blunt. And then this is obviously for your pop-off turns. Hexnail doesn't really come up super often because, usually, Faust is going to be moving around, like, the middle of the pack in terms of speed order. So, it's very rare for Hexnail to go off before, like, Quick Suppression on a pop-off turn or something. But, there are times when I used it just for the NV Fragility for Rip Space, which is a very common scenario, because Faust tends to outspeed. Faust tends to outspeed Don Quixote most of the time. Average speed range seems to be around, like, 3 to 6 is what I would consider average. So 4 to 7 is very brisk in terms of speed. So she will most of the time outspeed Don Quixote. And, I'll use Hexnail because Envy is pretty easy to come by, and, 1 Envy Fragility is 10% extra damage from Rip Space. If your Rip Space is doing 300 damage, that's another 30 damage that this adds. So, you know what? I'll take it. We take those. So, yeah, that's Gripper. LobCorp Remnant is basically, like, if you don't have Gripper, but I would not really recommend using her, to be honest. Not really my cup of tea. She does do good damage. Don't get me wrong, but you don't really use her. Anyways, we're gonna be going to Dawn. You already know what the situation is with Dawn. I don't really need to speak too much on it. We're going to obviously be using W Corp. Oh yeah, she has a Mental Hammer. Yeah, that can go down there. She has W Corp. This is basically all that you need. Again, she has a pretty good health pool, beefy health pool for a DPS unit. Offense level, above average, well above average, enough to get +1 in most clashes. And then, you know, Rip Space and Leap. You know, Leap has Fragile for no reason. Rip Space is just a monster. So, you know, Dawn with Telepole is super good. Because Telepole, people seem to, like, still not super understand, but Telepole is mostly used to, like, fix, quote-unquote, fix your bad hands. Like, if you have Rip on the bottom and then Rip Space on the top, you can use Telepole to override the Rip, and then if it hits heads, you can get 11 charge. Because, you know, as long as you have another Envy skill, I'm pretty sure it doesn't resonate for 1. So you need another Envy skill, which is not hard to get, because usually you're using other people with Envy. It's very common. So you would get 12 charge, lose 1 at the end of the turn, so you'd have 11 charge, and your Rip Space is ready. The only caveat is you lose 20 sanity, so you want to clash with Rip Space the next turn to, like, get your sanity back, but it's not you know, it's not a big deal. Usually you'll just get lucky with it, you know. And then Lifetime Stew, I've literally never used it once. I equipped it, you know, because it's, why not, I guess. But, you know, this thing is like, I don't even know. Like, I have no testing on it. I'm gonna be completely honest, I've never used it. I've never seen the animation for it, even. So, you know, it could be interesting, I guess, but it's just not worth the 20 sanity you lose to use it, to be honest, is what I think. Again, I've never used it, so, you know, whatever. Moving on, Ryoshu. My initial assumption was correct on Ryoshu. I'm glad that take aged well. You're going to be using Chef. And this is kind of where the meta, this is where the meta kind of gets shaken up a little bit, because the release of Chef drastically changed the railway meta. So the thing about these types of games, I've found, like, I come from I played plenty of gacha games before this one, so, you know, and I played like plenty of strategy games too. So, you know, I kind of have a pretty good idea of, you know, how to, you know, build team comps and, you know, recognize what's good and what's bad, just like initial perceptions. So, my trick to figuring out what sinners are good and what sinners are bad is by kind of categorizing them into different classes, like different archetypes, right? So, I usually use, like, terminology from, like, the Battle Cats, because I played the Battle Cats for, like, almost a decade, on and off, but, you know, there's, like, DPS, you know, tanker, there's, like, tankers, bruisers, DPS, and nukers, are, like, the only applicable descriptors for this game that carry over from there. Before Chef was released, we only had like 1.5 good slash nukers. The only good slash nuker that you would always have is Rip Space Dawn. This is the only big single target slash nuke in the game before Chef came out. So we were pretty starved for slash DPS. That's why when you look at a lot of old guides and old runs, including my old runs, you would run Kurakumo. because Cloud Cutter is the other, like, the other noteworthy slash nuke in the game, right? So Kurakumo is like the other slash nuker. There is also an honorable mention for She-Section Ishmael, because Flashing Strike, her skill too, if you can get it online, is Cloud Cutter, but like on super steroids. So, you know, she kind of counts, but again, I'm not super partial to using her, so I don't really count her that much. But besides Dawn, Kurakumo was the only slash nuker until Chef released. And when Chef released, she became a slash nuker, right? So she could fill that slash nuker role. See what I'm getting at here? So all of a sudden, when we think about like our piercing nuker, the only piercing nuker that we had was Rabbit, right? Like he's like a DPS more than a nuker though. Quick Suppression is a nuke button, but he does more like damage over time, kind of. And his value is mainly from the Fragile, and then obviously does a shit ton of damage. But you know, we'll get there when we get there. But he was the main piercing nuker. So we were also kind of starved for piercing damage. And the only other noteworthy piercing nuker slash DPS in the game was Ting Tang. The problem was, you can't run Kurakumo and Ting Tang at the same time. So because of this, we were forced to choose between Kurakumo and Ting Tang, right? And Kurakumo just kind of ended up being better most of the time, because Cloud Cutter gets more value generally than Shank does, right? So, you know, again, I'm gonna go back to, like, the Battle Cats again, but, if there's, like, a low unit number, like, there's a low unit pool, right, and you have very few options, you're going to value generalists more than specialists, okay? So, like, if you have a very small pool of options, you're going to want to choose things that can cover multiple roles, right? So that you can kind of swap between a couple things, but generally you'll be well-rounded, right? But as you get higher and higher up in levels of play, and you have more and more options at your disposal, you'll want to swap out those generalists for specialists, which can, you know, fulfill a specific niche role that no other character can, so that you can swap them in and out like parts, like moving parts of a machine, right? And they all serve a specific purpose. And they'll do that one specific thing better than anyone else, but they'll be terrible at everything else that they're not specialized for, right? But the thing is, having Chef as a slash nuker and also as a piercing DPS, like supporting DPS, allows us to swap from Kurakumo, who is a good generalist, to Ting Tang, who is more of a specialist. And overall, it will be better to take Ting Tang, you'll see. So, the advent of Chef was absolutely huge for the meta. Besides that, other things, she has good HP, but, you know, not more HP than Dawn, which is important because we want Dawn to have Rodion passive if you're taking her, like the Rodion support passive. And then, you know, 3 to 6 is average speed. Her support passive is very good. And her in-combat passive is pretty good. Her support passive is very good. Because, again, with the meta shift, you're going to see, the meta shift in the Gregor choice has also changed. We'll talk about it more, but basically, you're probably not going to be bringing G Gregor. And that means that you're kind of strapped for healing off, like, you know, some of that chip damage. So this will help offset, both of these, in fact, will help offset some of that chip damage, which is very, very nice. Other than that, she has a good offense level. and decent clashing across the board. So usually she'll get +1 on clashes. It's kind of a common theme. Besides that, fourth Match Flame is a fantastic ego. This thing is a huge nuke button. Slash Wrath again is very, you might think like, you know, it's very good on K-Corp, which it is. It is very good on K-Corp. But the problem is it costs Pride, and the whole meta shifted with Chef, and because you're not taking Kurkumo anymore, he was the main Pride generator in the meta before. So because you're not taking Kurkumo anymore, you do not have pretty much any Pride generation. The only Pride generation in the entire lineup is going to be just Gripper skill 3. And then if you choose to take LCCB Ishmael, it's going to be her skill 3. And LCCB is only used on a few stages. So she's going to generate maybe like 2 or 3 Pride over the course of the entire run. And let's say Faust generates like 4 to 6-ish over the course of the entire run. So you're not getting like any Pride at all, which is kind of a big problem for things like fourth Match Flame, because you'll only be able to use it like once or twice for the entire run basically, which is a shame because this thing is a monster. The support passive is an absolute fucking demon. And this thing can top out at like triple-digit numbers easily against these guys, and against the main target you're going to be using them is for the dogs, the Inquisitor dogs. So you'll wish you had more Pride, but unfortunately it's just not how it is. Anyways, that's kind of you know, the meta shift. Anyways, we have Meursault. Meursault is kind of a tanker, and this game does not really favor tankers. So, you know, most of the time, he's going to be on the bench, pretty much all the time, because he's just never worth bringing. So, again, we're going to be wanting to look at all of the Meursault support passives. This one is generally the easiest one to activate, and the most, like, applicable one. Because it's just free defense, right? Liu's, the Liu Meursault support passive is not very good. +1 burn on ally with the lowest speed pretty much comes up never, almost. Gross Hammers is actually pretty decent because Wrath is pretty abundant. So this can actually come up kind of frequently. But the problem is the ally needs to be below 50%. So, you know, you look at it at first glance and you're like, wow, this thing is really good. But the problem is the ally needs to be below 50%, which means that, you know, most of the time it's not doing anything. Quite frankly, I think maybe once, like, I don't know, if you're looking for a support passive that will help you with defense, just bring the base Meursault. Like, if your allies if your sinners are dropping below 50%, chances are you're just gonna want to reset the stage anyway. You know, so, you know, probably don't want to bring Gross Hammer. But I've actually been considering W Corp more as a support, because his support passive is absurdly easy to activate, and think of it like, you know, you're like, oh wow, this support passive is really good. It gives you a little bit of offense, and it gives you a little bit of defense. These two, the LCB Sinner and the W Corp Meursault, are kind of the two halves of this one passive. This gives you extra defense, and this gives you extra damage. And you might think, like, okay, like, you said Liu Meursault passive was, like, you know, super niche and not worth running, so why are you talking about W Corp passive? The thing about W Corp passive is that Rupture is a lot more common, and you're going to get a fair bit of value from it, because one ally with the lowest speed inflicts +1 Rupture. If you remember, Don Quixote W Corp actually inflicts Rupture. Her skill 1 inflicts 1 Rupture. And her skill 3 inflicts 5. So, and she usually is going to have the lowest speed, because 3 to 6 is, like, again, the average speed range, but most of the time, your teammates are going to be, like, you know, Gripper Faust, 4 to 7, Rabbit has, 3 to 7, yeah, 3 to 7, you know, the new Sinclair has 3 to 8, so, most of the time, Don Quixote is going to be the slowest, and you'll just get damage from it. So, this one is genuinely personal preference, but I don't have W Corp, nor am I going to dispense him. Like, I'm not going to use Pity to get W Corp and then burn 100 thread to uptie W Corp for Railway. So I just use LCB, but if you're looking for more damage, I'm not kidding, he is a genuine option for you. So we're going to be moving him up. We're actually going to be promoting him. Honglu, like I mentioned before in the other section, the meta has shifted towards Ting Tang because of the slash nuker niche being filled in by Ryoshu. So you can you know, freely not use Kurakumo. Pretty simple. Actually, there is a little bit to talk about with Honglu. Rosette Desire is a slept-on ego. I'm not kidding. Because, you know, excuse me, my, allergies, jeez. The defense power down and, the defense level down. The defense level down is very useful. Like, if you're using, again, this ego is super cheap, by the way. 4 Lust and 2 Envy is super cheap, because Lust and Envy are easy to come by. Especially because Ting Tang fully supports it. And you're going to be using Shank, his skill 2, very frequently. So, you know, you're going to get a lot of Lust just over time. This skill is better than using Throat Slit, for sure. So if you have Throat Slit, just throw this thing out here. If he outspeeds a couple of your teammates, defense level down will help you deal more damage. This actually gives you more damage because of the way the damage calculation works. The enemy's defense level helps to mitigate the amount of damage they take, obviously. So every little bit helps, you know? And again, this skill will deal more damage than Throat Slit will. So if you're going to... It's kind of like skill cycling in a way. You know, instead of generating a defense skill over your skill 1, you'll just use an ego instead. So it is pretty good, honestly. And besides that, the main boon of this ID, I'd say like 50% of his power is Shank and Mutilate. Again, like ludicrous offense level. Like you'll notice with all the meta IDs, they all have great offense level. But the main boon is Gambit, this passive. Most sanity deals 20% damage. 20% damage is insane to get for free. So any stage you're not using Ting Tang, because Ting Tang is only used on like 3 or 4 stages. Any stage you're not using Ting Tang, this passive is giving you insane amounts of value, frankly. So, just overall, like, the meta shift has been very, very positive. That's why, again, that's why you see, like, before skill discarding, the skill discard patch and, Hell's Chicken were introduced in the same update. I'm 99% sure. So, you know, before the skill discard patch, you would be, you know, you would be surprised to see someone with like a 65 or something as their railway score. But nowadays, you know, 65 is like pretty, it's still pretty good, but it's not like, you know, anything crazy. Now people are pushing sub 50 very closely. So this is partially why. New units just open up new opportunities. Like, people might think, like, you know, okay, Chef is good, but, like, Chef is not that good that you could cut, like, 10 turns just by having her. But it's not just the fact that Chef is in the game and she's good. It's because she opens up other opportunities to use other IDs, like Ting Tang. It's all these factors combined push the turn count down. It's not just Chef, like, you know, oh, she's power creeping, she's so OP that she herself, you know, can trivialize these railway stages. No, it's not like that. It's a combination of different factors in the meta. That's why, okay? So, Heathcliff, we're just going to use Rabbit. Obviously, we're using Rabbit. No questions asked here. Rabbit is just super good. 3 to 7 speed range is above average. Very nice. His support passive comes up maybe one stage on the entire railway, but, you know, it's free damage. We take it. But the main thing is obviously quick suppression, and his, again, topping out at pretty much the maximum current offense level, 41. Like, ludicrous. I don't even know how they, like, made this character, quite frankly. This thing is, like, this character is stupid. But yeah, you already know Heathcliff is super good. I don't really need to say anything about that. Body Sack, actually, people don't even, like, this passive comes up. Genuinely. It comes up. The most relevant stage that this comes up on is going to be Corp, stage 9 again, because it's kind of like you know, if you're playing I don't know, you're playing like League of Legends or something, like you're playing like Katarina, you know, she resets on kill like all of her ability cooldowns. This is basically what Heathcliff does on Corp, because when an ally kills an enemy, he will get an absurd power boost. And this can stack. Like, if you kill, like, 3 or 4 enemies in the same turn, the next turn, Heathcliff will get a stupid amount of damage and haste. So, when people are like, oh man, it sucks that I have quick suppression in my bottommost slot, because then I can't use Body Sack in order to set up with the 3 haste. There's a solution, bro. You just use the passive, kill 2 guys, and boom, you're over the speed threshold. I'm pretty sure I have a screenshot of it somewhere here, where Heathcliff, yeah, look at this. He has 9 haste and 9 attack power up. 8 of that is from the passive, and then there's one from the one from his in battle passive, which is raring to graze. He gains 1 haste and 1 attack power up. So Heathcliff here has 13 speed, because you synchronize the turn before, you synchronize killing all of these guys at the same time, so that you go into the next wave with an absurd power boosted quick suppression, right? So that's kind of the strategy there, and the Body Sack passive is super important for that strategy. So, you know, do not sleep on it. Next we have Ishmael. Ishmael is a very interesting case. I'm going to ward off against She-Section. It's either going to be LCB or Reindeer. Now, the thing is, this is like where I am on Ishmael right now. LCCB is very good, obviously. She generates pride, which is a major plus, because, again, we're starving on pride. So, her generating pride is very handy. But in my previous strategies, I gravitated more towards Reindeer. And the reason I gravitated towards Reindeer was because we did not have a single blunt nuker in the game, right? We have a lot of blunt damage because, you know, we have a bunch of AoE, like, blunt egos that are just super spammable, super easy to abuse, you know? But we don't have a single blunt nuke skill at the time. Mind Whip was the only one. So if you're facing down like a single enemy that is like super durable, and their only weakness is blunt damage, uh, the only option you had for a blunt nuke was Mind Whip. That's why I used to take Reindeer. But the thing is, because of the new Sinclair, we do not need to take Reindeer anymore. Because of Self-Destructive Purge and Immoral Enactment. These two skills are both single-target blunt nukes. These do absolute digits. Especially this. This skill is basically... It does the same damage about as, like, 2 Mind Whips. Like, Mind Whip will usually deal about, like, 200-ish to, like, Guido. This thing can deal... I've had times where this thing look at this. 596. Obviously, this is like an edge case. You're not going to be hitting at 596 most of the time. But, dude, like, this thing is disgustingly good. So you might be thinking to yourself, like, okay, well, you know, it's kind of like the same thing with Chef and Kurakumo, you know? Maybe he gets pushed out of the meta. Maybe he pushes Reindeer out of the meta, rather. Which would be true, if it weren't for Reindeer's support passive, which one ally with the least sanity deals 10% extra blunt damage. So, there is a genuine discussion to be had, and frankly, I am not sure which one is better, because in battle, LCCB is better than Reindeer at the moment, because the in-battle niche of Reindeer is now covered by Sinclair. You no longer need to bring Reindeer into these battles, because the Gripper Sinclair covers pretty much all of her bases. So the only thing you would be using her for, pretty much, is just the support passive. So I don't know if it's worth bringing her just for Sinclair to do 10% extra blunt damage. Personally, I say no, and I like LCCB more, but Reindeer is a genuine option. Next we have Rodion. There is, again, a genuine discussion to be had here. We're just gonna... Yeah, okay. There's a genuine discussion to be had here about Rodion, because, again, Sinclair shakes up the entire meta. His health is 161, which for a DPS is pretty absurd. Like, that is absurd health for a DPS unit, or a nuker unit. So, the thing about Sinclair's health being 161 is that he has more HP than pretty much every other, like, literally every other DPS unit. And pretty much every unit, just generally speaking, he has more health than every unit, except for, I believe, LCCB has more health than him. But you don't want Rodion passive to go on LCCB, because, you know, LCCB is not doing that much damage. And you don't want Rodion passive to go onto the Gripper, because it only applies the extra damage on heads, and you don't want Gripper to be hitting heads, obviously, because it's just completely awful. So just genuinely, there is a decision to be made, but if you don't want to, you do like health manipulation shenanigans, use Mittelhammer as your support. You get free haste and free damage, which is good. It is good. And you can use her in battle, but I wouldn't recommend using her in battle. I'm not super partial to using her in battle, frankly. I think she's kind of clumsy to use, and she doesn't really pull her own weight, damage-wise. So, you know, but she does have a pride skill one, whatever. But I personally use LCB over Mittelhammer, but I could see it. I could see you going either way. So genuinely, it's your decision. Anyways, this is the really, really big decision, or the big meta shift. The new Sinclair. I didn't have a chance to talk about him in my last tier list because he wasn't out yet. But this guy is an absolute beast. I talked about him a little bit before. But I'll go into a little more detail here. This guy is just absolute, like, his value to the railway is indescribable. Again, he is Mr. Blunt Nuker. So thankfully we don't have to rely on Reindeer for single target blunt nuke damage. Absolutely phenomenal. People don't really like using Reindeer. She's kind of clumsy, you know, whatever. She's a little clunky to use, and she's slow. Sinclair has none of these problems. And the balancing factor for him is that he has sanity problems. Like, he has genuine sanity problems where if you're trying to maximize his effectiveness, you're going to be corroding a lot of the time after a big nuke turn. Or if you're not corroding because, like, you're using self-destructive purge to, like, finish the stage or something, when you come out of the stage, he's going to be at negative 45, and you go into the next stage, and he's going to be at negative 45. So as soon as you use any of his skills, he will instantly corrode the next turn, which is, like, you know, kind of a little bit annoying. So he has his own issues, but the reward for managing his sanity, you know, pacing yourself throughout the battle, the reward is astronomical in terms of sheer damage. Like, he does not need any setup, essentially. Like, all these other big nuke buttons, they tend to need setup, you know? Quick suppression, you need haste. Rip space, you need charge. Mind whip, you need charge. I can cook anything. You need the enemy to be on low health. You know, self-destructive purge requires none of these things. He can technically, if you're just lucky, he can hit a self-destructive purge for full damage out the gate. And this thing is it's a monster. So, and do not sleep on his skill 2 either. This thing is absolutely fantastic as well. So, you know, just overall, the new Sinclair, fantastic. Huge mention to Impending Day, by the way. Because Sinclair actually has extremely good combat prowess now. Because before, none of his IDs were really good at dealing damage. So Impending Day was balanced around the fact that he had trouble killing people to get the passive to go off. This is no longer an issue with the new Sinclair, because he has a ton of damage packed into his kit. So, you know, just generally speaking, Impending Day is what you want to take if you're going to take either of these. For a couple reasons. 1, gives you health. 2, gives you Sin Affinity. And 3, if you're corroding often, you don't want to be corroding into Lifetime Stew, because Lifetime Stew targets the units with the least HP, targets 3 people. Hey, guess what? The units with the least HP are 99% of the time going to be your own teammates. So, don't want to be doing that. Probably don't take it. I'd rather be hitting 1 person with Impending Day than 3 people with Lifetime Stew. And, again, if you corrode, it activates the passive, by the way. So, like, I'm 99.9% sure, if you're corroding, it activates the passive as if you use the ego. Because you use the ego, it spends the resources, too. So, if you're corroding, like, in the next stage situation where you're starting with negative 45 and you corrode, you know, you get free ego resources afterwards if you kill things with him. So, you know, the new Sinclair, absolutely meta shifting. Outis has fallen out of the meta as of recent. Again, you're still going to be using 7 section as your Outis of choice. Just because 7 section, her support passive is the best, essentially. That's like what it boils down to. The reason she shifted out of the meta was because her main usage, she's used on stage 1. I like to use her on stage 1 because, you know, her main strength is clashing at low sanity because she lowers the enemy clash power. So I like to use her on stage 1, and that's it. The reason she was good before is because Kurakumo Honglu was meta, and Kurakumo could generate your pride, and with that pride you could use Ebony Stem, and Ebony Stem is a phenomenal ego. The thing is, the meta shifted again away from pride generation, and this thing absolutely gorges all of your pride resources, so you can't, essentially the entire run you can't use Ebony Stem. Because you just won't have the resources for it. So Outis has shifted way out of the meta. She's only used on like stage 1 because of her consistency, and then after that she's just a bench fiend because her support passive is very good. That is all. So if you're wondering why Outis is not used as much, it's not because she got worse. It's just because the meta shifted away from generating resources for Ebony Stem, which was her main strength. So that's why. And then Gregor, we're going to put Liu actually on top. What the hell is Heathcliff doing here? What the hell's him down there? But yeah, we're going to be using Liu Gregor over G Gregor. The reason why, and I kind of mentioned it in the other tier list, the reason why is because his support passive is absolutely phenomenal. For, you know, if it hits on Don, or it hits on Chef, or if it hits on Sinclair now, this thing is an absolute nuke, the support passive. And in battle, he's actually very good. Again, you'd only bring Gregor into fights where you're going to use Legerdemain. Probably, you would only bring him. But his skills are actually very nice. He is a blunt DPS. He's a blunt bruiser. So, you know, Perfected Palm Strike. This thing does numbers on K-Corp stage 1. They're all weak. They're all fatal to blunt. This thing does numbers on K-Corp. This thing does numbers. And on N-Corp, this thing does numbers. Single point stab, very nice ability. Blunt Wrath is very good against the N-Corp guys, I believe. No, I'm tripping. It's the bugs, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's the bugs. But the N-Corp guys are fatal to blunt and fatal to gluttony. So Legerdemain goes crazy. So these will actually do very solid damage. And then, you know, if you're on a stage where, you know, single point stab is not that good, just use Legerdemain. You know, very simple. He does good damage in battle as a bruiser, and he does excellent on the bench. The reason we shifted away from G Gregor is because at the highest level of play, 2 things. 1, you need damage in order to clear stages quickly. So this ID giving you damage on the bench and in battle is better than giving you the safety of healing. And second of all, if you're taking significant amounts of damage at the highest level, you should just reset. Like that's kind of the mentality. Like if you're taking damage and you're like, okay, like I wish I had G Gregor to like heal off the damage in the next stage. Just reset and then get better RNG where you don't take damage, you know? So, you know, we've shifted away from using G Gregor, which means that this puts even more emphasis on Ryoshu's passive, both in battle and out of battle. This is going to be your only sustain for the entire railway, besides benching people for bench heals. So, very important. Anything else? Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, Ardor Blossom Star Uptie this thing. This thing is absolutely a legend. It's stupid, stupid good. No matter which Ishmael you choose to use, this thing will deal absolute numbers. It does not matter which one you choose to use, because when you use Ardor Blossom Star, the stages you use it on are gonna be like Wolf, Ichthys, and like, you know, very, very short stages where you want to burst them down 1 or 2 turns. So it doesn't matter which Ishmael you bring, because you're only using one ability, which is not related to any of their skills. So this is going to be the updated tier list of who, in my opinion, you should bring. And this is reflected in my lineup. This is who I would bring to Railway, and this is who I did bring to Railway in order to get 55. And that's the reason for all of my choices. And now I hope that because I've taught you all of the reasons why I bring these IDs, you can make educated decisions on who you want to bring, if you're missing some of these, who you would want to bring, and like if new IDs get released in the future, you can use this methodology, like this method of thinking, in order to kind of foresee what meta changes will unfold before the ID gets released, and before people can test the ID. You know, you can kind of have an idea of what developments will happen, you know? Like, there's a huge, again, the inclusion of Chef means that Kurakumo became less meta than Ting Tang, which means that Outis was a lot less usable because you did not have Kurakumo for Pride Generation. So the Pride Generation meta became very, very poor, and Outis became a glorified benchmonger. So it's it's just it's kind of difficult to foresee these things, but logically speaking, it makes sense. So that's why I bring all those. Now, I told you this is gonna be a long ass fucking video. Because we're gonna be going through stage by stage every single strategy I use. Alright? And the reason why I use them, and what you're looking for, if you're looking for that 69 banner, I'm assuming. So, I've screenshotted most of, I've screenshotted, all of the stages, every single turn, pretty much, of every stage, and we're just gonna go through and see what I'm rocking with. Alright, so the first couple stages I did not screenshot every single turn of, just because it was a lot of resetting for sanity RNG for the first 2 stages, so I only screenshotted the last turn, because your stages will vary wildly based on your sanity RNG early on. But the main goal with stage 1, I kind of regret it, but early on into the run, I took a a longer stage 1 and 2. I took 5 turns on stage 1 and 4 turns on stage 2. With the new Sinclair, you can actually go 4 and 3, and you can cut 2 turns right here. It is very difficult, but it is possible. But I would take a 5 and 4 just to be safe and just to get that extra sin resource. Alright? Hold on, let's, we're on shopkeepers. Yeah, okay. Let's go back to the beginning. But yeah, I take extra turns just to get the sin resources rolling. You want, my major note for this stage, you want to have Sinclair's Impending Day uptie 3. Most people have it at uptie 2 because that's what you need to unlock the passive that, you know, makes it useful. But uptie 3 Impending Day barely does enough damage in order to one-shot these 91 health guys. Uptie 1 and uptie 2 does barely enough damage to leave them at like 1 health. So if you're on Impending Day, do your best to have it up to 3, because it will be able to one-shot these guys if it rolls tails, which is fantastic. Instead of leaving them on 1 HP, because if you miss the kill, again, their passive in combat allows them to heal at the end of every turn if they're below 50%. So, you know, other than that, the self-destructive purge hit Sinclair skill 3 will pretty much one-shot everything, like nuke from orbit. Like it pretty much one-shots the big guy too if you have it. But, you know, depending on your skill rotation, I would just take a 5, you know, and then I screenshot at the end of every stage so I can see my sin resources. You can see we have a pretty healthy assortment of a little bit of everything, you know. I try and get a little bit of pride with Ishmael, that's why she's there. And then stage 2, again, is basically just the last one, because we are starting with a 0 sanity Don Quixote, a 0 sanity Chef, 0 sanity Ting Tang, and a 0 sanity Faust, I believe. Yeah, so the only person with sanity at the start is going to be Heathcliff, so I didn't bother screenshotting all the early turns because, you know, there's a lot of sanity RNG involved. But my main note for this is you're going to want Mutilate. It takes a little bit of resetting for Mutilate to go off, but on stage, on the first wave, there's 4 little guys and a big dude. You just want Mutilate to wipe out 2 of the little guys. Or on the second wave, there's 2 little guys, 2 big guys, and then Ida. You're going to want Mutilate to wipe out the 2 little guys. So, yeah. I mean, there's not really much else to say besides just get good RNG and fucking hope, you know? And just, like, just hope that you get decent RNG. But yeah, at the end of stage 2, these are the resources we're going with. Don't worry too much about Wrath and Lust, because these will stack up very, very high by the end of the run. Not many things will be using them for most of it, until the very end. But you want to start stacking up your Gluttony and your Sloth. And then Gloom will end up accruing over time, and Envy ends up stacking up over time as well, but you will be spending Envy semi-frequently, so, you know, it's good to have surplus of that. And then Pride, you know, so going into Toad, these are our resources. So for Toad, I go for a 3-turn, with this new strategy I'm rocking with here, with the new Sinclair. Toad's passive, let's see if I can pull it up here for us. Toad's passive is very annoying. Let's see if I can found in stage 3. I don't know if they have it here, but anyways, whatever. Wait, is it the eye? Yeah, okay, so it's the eyes. So when either of these eyes break, the enemy with the least sanity, so your sinner with the least sanity loses 35. So the reason Sinclair is here is because he is a sanity magnet, essentially. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to break the eye, and usually once you break the eye, which is when you want to do the most damage, to finish the Toad quickly, he'll nuke one of your sinner's sanities, and then it just becomes like a RNG nightmare. But with Sinclair at 0, because, you know, we healed him on the Mariachi stage. We bench healed him because we didn't bring him, so he's going to be at 0. And we're going to use him as a sanity magnet to absorb the Toad passive when we pop the eye. So what we're looking for here is basically, you know, the standard fare. Main thing is going to be 2 leaps, and then we're going to be wanting Sinclair's skill 3. You can see it up there. After that, the next turn, you're basically looking for Heathcliff to get 2 slots. And then you're going to be wanting... I can cook anything. Again, you can... If you see these turn 1, you're good. But you want to see I can cook anything. You want to see 2 quick suppressions. You want to see Sinclair's skill 3, Self-Destructive Purge, and you want to see Rip Space. Feel free to use Teledon if you don't get 2 leaps. Like here, I got really lucky. I saw a leap here, and then I see another leap next turn, and then the next turn after that was Rip Space. So I didn't have to use Teledon, but, you know, feel free to use Teledon if you want. But here we just use Body Sack to set up. Turn 1 is kind of annoying because you can't do pretty much any damage to Toad because this guard skill right here, it's like Crew Who or something, I think is named. Yeah, at the start of combat, the Toad will gain 2 protection, and it's combat start. It's not like on skill use or anything, so there's nothing you can do about it. He will gain 2 protection, so you don't do like any damage. So the turn 1 is just, you know, mitigate your sanity loss. Just clash with everything, mitigate your sanity loss, get your charge up, cycle out your bad skills, you know. Then turn 2 is going to be your classic setup. You know, you're slowly lowering Sinclair's sanity here, you're getting your charge, you're getting your body sack. And then, you know, it's nice to have Ryoshu's bind on her skill 2, just to help with the clashing. And what we're going to be wanting to target is the right eye, because when we're talking about self-destructive purge, the eyes are identical in resistances, except they have inverted resistances to gloom and wrath. So, you know, you can see here, wrath, the right eye is weak to wrath and ineffective to gloom, and the left eye is the other way around. So we're going to be wanting to target the right eye so that self-destructive purge can get that 50% bonus damage. Anyways, so that's what we're going to be doing here. We're targeting the right eye, clashing with everything else. We're letting Sinclair get hit by this attack, you know, just because we don't care about his sanity that much. And then the next turn is when we will pop off. So we have a double quick suppression into a Rip Space, into a self-destructive purge, into an I Can Cook Anything. And we're just going all in on the right eye, and this will drastically overkill Toad, I believe. So yeah, we still had the last coin of I Can Cook Anything available to us here, and that is how you do a 3-turn Toad pretty easily. This took me maybe like an hour to get, so it looks pretty RNG heavy, but it's really not that bad. It just depends on your luck, obviously. So that's how you do a 3-turn Toad. And these are our resources at the end. Again, the only ego we used was Body Sack, so we're slowly getting our resources up for this next fight. And you can see, because we use Self-Destructive Purge, that loses a 15 sanity, and the eye breaking tanked his sanity to minimum. So at the end of the stage, he'll have 45 sanity. And we're moving into Corp here. I forgot to screenshot turn 1, but it's okay. But basically what we're gonna be doing here is I believe, what did I do? I'm pretty sure I used Fluid Sac on turn 1 to help heal up Sinclair from minimum, because Fluid Sac will, the thing is, if Sinclair the way that corrosion works is that if you lose sanity at -45, like once you hit -45, if you lose more sanity past there, that's what triggers the corrosion. So if your Faust can move faster than Sinclair and you can use Fluid Sac before he moves, you can heal him up over the -45, and then when he uses his attack after Faust in the turn, he will move back down to low sanity. But he won't corrode, which is very nice. So, you know, just something to think about there. And then, you know, the reason that we're above -45 after is because we killed a couple guys. I think we killed like 3 guys, and that heals him per kill. You know, so that's kind of what we're working with here. Other than that, it's pretty standard fare, just Legerdemain, AoE, blunt spam. The next turn, again, we're just using Legerdemain and Fluid Sac, and our Self-Destructive Purge, I believe, is going on Guido. Yes, it is. So Guido will pretty much just die to this thing, And then, you know, we're saving our quick suppression for the turn after to clean up any stragglers and see if we can get a 6 on our speed here. Because we kind of got unlucky with the placement. I mean, we didn't get super unlucky, but, you know, I'd rather not use quick suppression on these little guys, and I'd rather not use body sack because our lust is looking pretty poor. So, you know, we're just hoping that we're gonna get a 6 on our quick suppression. We don't, but as you can see, like, this is the winning run, so we end up getting there anyway. Just using Liger to clean up some stragglers, quick suppression to clean up Guido, and then, you know, just using the rest of these skills here. So that's how you would subvert Sinclair corroding, because again, we started at -45. I forgot to show you the turn 1, unfortunately, but that is how it works. You need Faust to outspeed Sinclair and use Fluid Sac or Representation Emitter or something to heal him off of Death's Door, basically, for sanity. Then when he goes, he will dip back down, but he won't lose more sanity, you know? So that's how it works. This is what our ego resources are looking like afterwards on stage 4, and a 4-turn stage 4 is pretty fast. So moving into Watchdog, this is basically 2-turn setup, very standard textbook 2-turn setup. You're looking for gripping, quick suppression, I can cook anything, self-destructive purge, and suppress. And you know, optionally, you can get execution too, which is very nice because the Watchdog again is very fatal to Pride. So you know, we're just sending everything on telepole here. The way Watchdog works is if you stagger or break the telepole, all of its actions will get canceled. So as long as you outspeed it, all of its actions will get canceled once you stagger the telepole. So we're going to stagger it here. You can see the stagger, but we're going to try not to kill it. We're doing our best not to kill it, because that way this turn, when we go, if the wolf were to outspeed some of our dudes, again, it once the telepole staggers or breaks, it cancels all of its actions. So we want to stagger at turn 1 to cancel all its actions, and then break it on turn 2 to cancel all of its actions again. That's basically how we want it to go. But you know, it wouldn't matter in this case because we've outsped with every single center. But you know, just in case. And then other than that, pretty standard two-turn kill setup. And you know, we get our pride skills in there a little bit. This takes a little bit of finagling with Ishmael speed, but you know, not much to worry about here overall, you know. And yeah, this is actually 14 health. So you know, we massively overkilled the Alleyway Watchdog. This is like the second coin or something kills him. So we had plenty of damage to spare. So, you know, you don't need good speed on Ishmael. You know, you'd rather her outspeed some other people, but you know, we had damage to spare. So that's our 2-turn wolf. Next we're moving on to robot. These are our sin resources. Let me just check something really quick here. Yeah, okay. So these are our sin resources. And we're going to attempt a 4-turn robot. Now, 4-turn robot is kind of annoying to get because it's relatively it's complex. The setup is complex. What you're looking for, essentially, apparently I forgot to screenshot it. But what you're looking for here is you want a, you're going into the stage, you want to try and save your ammo on Heathcliff, and you want a 2-slot Heathcliff and a 2-slot Chef. And you want 2 quick suppressions in different slots, and 2 I can cook anythings in different slots. And then you're bringing Don as fodder for the crane. So basically, how it works is the robot is super durable and super annoying, and people people don't realize, like, they don't think about why. The reason why it's so annoying is because it has one body part, and it has no stagger bar on any of it. So your damage is heavily nerfed against the robot most of the time. However, there is a way to give the robot a stagger bar, and that's by letting someone get grabbed. So the way that we make this work is we want to bring Don Quixote to, literally, her purpose is just to get grabbed so the robot goes into the next state here, right? And he uses the guard skill. This gives him a stagger bar. It is not a forgiving stagger bar, mind you. It is a very unforgiving stagger bar. You need a shit ton of damage in order to stagger him here, but it is possible. So the strategy we're doing is we're going to get 2 quick suppressions to give a shit ton of fragility, and then we're going to get 2 I Can Cook Anythings and just burn down the robot. Couple of things here that make this strategy very annoying to set up. You'll see that Chef is missing health. That is because previously in the stage, again, I forgot to screenshot it, but it's whatever. Previously in the stage, I let Chef tank a few hits from the robot. Like I chose intentionally to not clash with some of the attacks. That's because baseline, Chef has more health than Rabbit. And we need Rabbit to get the Gambler passive from Rodion in order to stagger the robot, so that Chef can do full damage. So we let Chef tank a couple of hits. And likewise, here on the grab turn, we are letting Dawn tank this hit here and the grab itself to make sure that she is not absorbing any of the support passives, which would, otherwise nerf our damage. Because if she's grabbed and she's like AFK, she's just sucking up support passives, which could be used to help our damage. So after that, Dawn gets grabbed, and you can see Heathcliff has the most HP, Dawn is second most, and Ryoshu has least, so we're good there. Just make sure you're manipulating your health correctly. This is extremely important for the setup, because there were like 2 other runs where I couldn't figure out like why I wasn't getting the result I wanted. That is why, because Dawn or Chef were like randomly sucking up the support passives. So just make sure you're doing that correctly, and you should be good. It is pretty close, depending on if you have the, I do not have the Gregor passive up, so it is very close in terms of damage, but it is possible, and this is how you would do a 4-turn robot, without using a ton of egos or anything. Alright, this is the setup. And you can see it came down to the last coin on the second I Can Cook Anything, but this thing does 400 damage to the robot. So, once you can get it staggered, you can see the stagger bar there on the guard skill. You can see the stagger bar. So you give it a stagger bar in this phase. One other thing, I'm sure you knew, but if you did not know, this guard skill that the robot uses, let's see here. This guard skill, here, processing computation on use gives 5 protection. It's not the same as the Toads, because the Toads is on combat start, I believe. Combat start gain 2 protection. This guard skill gives 5 protection on use. So, what you want to do is make sure that you are clashing with the guard skill on your last skill, so that all of your other stuff can go through before it uses the guard skill to gain 5 protection. If you use your quick suppression and clash with that, he will gain 5 protection before all of your things go off, and it will ruin your setup, basically. Because if you can stagger it before the last skill goes through, it'll go through uncontested, and it won't ever get the chance to use the guard skill to gain the 5 protection. So that's basically that's also extremely important. So just make sure you're ordering your skills correctly, you know. And these are our resources after the fact. Next, we're going for a 1-turn Headless Ichthys. This is pretty standard. It's just, there's many different setups you can use for it, but this is just one of the combinations. Essentially, you want to go on just one of the fins. Just pick like the fastest one, so that you take the least amount of damage, and just burn it down. So you're looking for 6 speed, quick suppression, like any combination of these. You know, 6 speed, quick suppression, self-destructive purge. I can cook anything, and then I use Faust for Hex Nail on the off chance that Faust can outspeed Heathcliff with Hex Nail. It's basically GG if she can manage that. But I use Ting Tang too because Shank can benefit off of the Pierce Fragility, and this is an easy 1-turn. Again, there's many different setups and many different iterations. Like, there's many different combinations of skills you can use. Like, you can bring, instead of Chef, you can bring like Ishmael and use Ardor Blossom Star. That thing does absolute numbers. You know, instead of Faust, you can bring Ishmael, use Ardor. Like, you know, there's many different ways you can do a 1-turn. But, you know, you just send everything on one of the fins. Like, take your pick, you know, and just go for it. After this, it's the, excuse me. It's the, Nothing There Inquisitors. We're going for 4 turns on this. I actually, for the life of me, could not figure out how to do 4 turns for the longest time, because I was struggling to get 5 turns before. This is how you do 4 turns. Alright? It's relatively innocuous, the setup at first. Like, you can see my skill rotation is pretty standard. I believe that's a Ryoshu skill 3 in the wings there. But other than that, what you're basically looking for is just 2 leaps. And you just want to you just clash with everything. And especially make sure you clash with the Middle Inquisitors, all of his skills, because I believe all of them give him buffs, instinct and whatnot. And you want to make sure that he does not gain, yeah. So you want to make sure you win with a Just Shell, and you want to win with Bone Blast. Just make sure you're winning, you know? And then, you know, you can tank a little bit. Like, you can tank Sanity on Don Quixote. She doesn't really care. This ability does, like, no damage. Preferably, obviously, you'd rather it target Sinclair, but it's not a big deal. Like, you'll see Don Quixote takes, like, what? That's, like, 12 damage or something, so whatever. After this, you're looking for 2 slots on Heathcliff, by the way. And then, again, because it's a 4-turn, the odds of you seeing all your skill 3s are pretty high, so that's why the turn 1 setup doesn't really matter. You know, as long as you, like, see some decent skills, it could be a live run. You just gotta play it out. The most important thing is 2 slots on Heathcliff, and you want to see his quick suppression twice. That's like the main thing. This turn, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, it's kind of hard to see, but Sinclair is clashing with the Middle Inquisitor, just to lower his sanity a little bit, because the counter skills lower sanity on hit. And then, other than that, we're just using Body Sack to clash with this dude, so we don't take any residual damage, and then we're sending it, just targeting one. Just pick one. You don't want to pick one that has protection on it. When the Inquisitors have Instinct stacks, they will gain attack power up and protection per stack. So this Inquisitor back here has 3 Instinct, so it has 3 protection. So we're going to want to burst the one that has no protection. They lose protection just from getting hit, so, you know, the reason this one has more Instinct is because we tanked his attack, so he'll gain an Instinct. But Sinclair won this clash and hit him twice with his skill 1, so he lost 2 Instinct, you know, that's how it works. So this guy has no Instinct, this guy has 3. Next turn, we're basically going to be using Body Sack again, and then we're going to be quick suppressing. The quick suppression is going to go to the middle guy, because our goal here is to stagger the middle dude here. so that the counter turn just doesn't happen, essentially. We want to stagger him so the counter turn doesn't happen. Because that will slow down our clear drastically. You want to hard burst the middle guy as much as possible on this turn. Save some of your burst for the next turn because you're going to need it. But your goal here is to stagger him. That's like your main goal. So what we're going to be using here is we're going to be using Quick Suppression and Rip Space, I believe. Yeah, we're using Quick Suppression and Rip Space and just doing our absolute best to either stagger him or kill him. Besides that, just clash with everything again. You're setting up. Use your off slot. Like, if you get Quick Suppression in the right-hand slot, then just use your off slot to use Body Sack. If you get it in the left-hand slot, then you can just use it underneath, you know? So, it's not a big deal. You just need to see 2. And then we're saving our other 2 nuke buttons for 1 each, you know? So that last turn actually ended up killing the middle Inquisitor with Quick Suppression and Rip Space, which is very nice. So now we're just left with the 2 little guys. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use Quick Suppression and 1 nuke button here on the bigger dude. Because, again, you want to use Quick Suppression on... the healthier one because they are fatal to Envy, so it does a ton of damage. So, you know, you're gonna use Quick Suppression on the big guy, or the healthier one, and then, you know, one of your nuke buttons. Then send everything else on the other guy with, you know, I used Teledon because I believe I had Rip. Yeah, I had Rip. So, you know, just to secure the kill. But, you know, you have I Can Cook Anything, and then, you know, Heathcliff's skill 1, you know. So, this is your standard 4-turn setup. It does take a little bit of finagling, but overall it's not super bad. Becomes a lot easier with the new Sinclair, obviously. So, we're gonna move on to the K-Corp. This is like one of my biggest regrets about the run. Was K-Corp. K-Corp was a fucking, like, absolute nightmare. I hate this stage, because in order to do it quickly, you need a ton of ego resources. And in order to do it quickly without Kurakumo is extremely difficult. It was very tight before to get a 5-turn with Kurakumo. Getting a 5-turn without Kurakumo is borderline impossible. Like, I'm not kidding. So, what I did was I just compromised and said, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do a 6-turn instead, because I don't want to use every single ego resource I have to try and get a 5-turn and then ruin the rest of my run. So, what we're going to be doing here is a 6-turn, because a 5-turn requires pitch perfect RNG and a ton of ego resources in order to do. So we're going to be bringing Isong. This is his only time to shine, but it's pretty good. He is at 0 sanity, so what we're looking for here mainly is we want Faust to outspeed Isong so that she can use Representation Emitter to boost his sanity up a little bit, and then Isong can clash with something with his ego, boost his sanity up a little bit when he wins the clash, and hopefully he'll hit heads. Other than that, you're just I'm using Body Sack here just to set up the passive and save a little bit of ammo, because again, the Body Sack passive goes crazy on this stage. So just get it out of the way quickly. We see Quick Suppression in our future here, but it hardly makes a difference. Anyways, so you want to burst down these whatever 3 of your choice with your AoE egos. Ryoshu is just gonna clean up. She's just gonna clean up this guy, because he's 4th Match Flame and Representation Emitter leave them on literally like 10 health. So you can just use like a Ryoshu skill 1, clean them up. You know, you could use Body Sack if you want to clean the other guy up, but it hardly makes a difference. I'm actually saving this guy on 1 health for next turn, so that when I kill him, Body Sack passive will go off and I'll get an extra, you know, little damage boost. And Sinclair's skill 2, you're also looking for here. This is like almost ideal RNG. If you get his skill 2, just send it on the dude you're not targeting, because this will deal an insane amount of damage, and it will probably stagger him. So we're going to go to the next turn. And this is what our next turn looks like. So this is like, you know, pretty much the ideal setup here. You can see this is the K-Corp that Sinclair targeted, and it did like over half of his health and staggered him. So this is just pretty standard cleanup on this turn. You know, weaving in the Blade Lineage skill 1 so that you can get the Pride, because we're at 3 Pride now for our next representation emitter. So, you know, just weaving that in, making sure it gets a kill here. Other than that, you're just basically cleaning up a bunch of other guys with your skills. No need to use egos. The next wave is when we're going to again want to use egos, and our Sinclair corroded. Not a big deal. Remember, make sure you check both of the corroded skills, by the way. You want to check both of the corroded skills because they each target different things randomly. Like, the corroded ego always targets randomly, but each individual corroded ego targets a different thing randomly. So sometimes one of them will be targeting your teammate, and the other one will be targeting an enemy. So just make sure you're checking both of them, because, you know, sometimes you'll just get free damage. Other than that, you're just looking for, you're looking to soften up the enemies again, so we're going to use 4th Match Flame, we're going to use Representation Emitter, and then soften up all the dudes. And then the next turn, all of them are very low and staggered, and then this guy, you know, had a little more health, but it's not a big deal. What we want to do is we want to try and kill them all on the same turn, so that the next turn, when the next wave happens, your Heathcliff body sack passive will go off like crazy. So, you know, we're just going to be using our Heathcliff here to clash with this guy and then stagger him. Sinclair will finish him off, and then, you know, each of our sinners will handle the, like, you know, we have 2 of them on the healthiest guy, you know, we have skill 2 over here to clean up this dude. Execution, they're fatal to Pride, so Execution will kill this dude from 90 easily, and then, you know, we have skill 1 here. The next turn after that, we have our iconic 13 speed and 9 like damage up Heathcliff with quick suppression. So we're just gonna send it all on the bottom dude, because, you know, I don't exactly remember. I think it's because he was targeting, like, the ability targeting was very inconvenient. So just make sure you're checking. Like, I don't care if Faust tanks this skill, but I'm pretty sure he was targeting Sinclair with an attack, or he was targeting Ryoshu with an attack. So, you know, I couldn't kill the top dude because ignoring the bottom dude would have staggered them. So just make sure that you're targeting whichever one. It hardly matters. Just make sure you're targeting the one that's targeting people that's important, you know. And then besides that, you're just sending it all on this guy basically. And you're using the gripping. Make sure you save 1 gripping, by the way. Like, I'm saving this gripping for a while. Yeah, I'm saving this gripping for a while. I'm literally saving it since, like, turn 1 almost. So we see the gripping here, we see the gripping there. We'll override 1 gripping with Representation Emitter, but we're keeping the other gripping for this moment. So you want to, you know, send everything on this dude to kill him. And, you know, we'll save our Sinclair skill 3. And we'll use the gripping with Sinclair's skill 3. Sinclair's skill 1 is actually very good here, because on Tails hit, it'll give him Fanatic. So Fanatic just gives him extra damage for free. If you look over here, he has his own, like, 2-turn setup. His gameplay flow is very satisfying. So on Tails hit, on the second coin, it gives him Fanatic, and his skill 3 gains 50% extra damage with Fanatic. And then the Fanatic buff itself gives extra damage if the target has nails. So, That's basically what we're doing. We just use his skill 2 or his skill 1 uncontested on this guy just to get the free fanatic buff for next turn on this dude up here. So after that, we're just cleaning this guy up. I'm pretty sure we had two Isong skill 1s, so we just use 4th Match Flame again. And then we'll just clean up with the skill 3, you know how it is. So that's basically the 6-turn K-Corp. My ego resources after, this is the main killer of my run, was the ego resource deficiency. I have 0 sloth and I have 3 gluttony, which means that pretty much all of my ego passives are turned off, and I'm pretty sure the reason why I have so little ego resources was because of N-Corp. Like way back stage 4, because I used Legerdemain a little too, like I relied on it a little too much. So for Slithering Inquisitor, I had no Gregor passive, I had no Outis passive, and I had no Ting Tang Gambler passive or whatever. So it was like, boy was it rough. So we compromise on K-Corp, but our next stage is going to be kind of annoying. I was initially going to go for 7 turns, but 7 turns is really, really tight, and the difference maker is actually going to be the support passives. I'm missing 3 support passives that give me damage, and that ends up being the difference maker, so I have to compromise with an 8-turn. Here, I have some screenshots, yeah, see? This dude lives on 1, and then this is the closest I ever got, was on turn 7. This guy lived on like none, and this guy lived on 15. So, you know, I compromised with an 8-turn. It is what it is, you know? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in, just when you go in, you're just looking to, because the stage is long, you're going to go through all of your skills anyway, so the initial skill lineup hardly matters. Frankly, it hardly matters. All you're gonna want to do is you're going to want to use your 4th Match Flame Ryoshu just to get the passive going, just to get the passive out there. And then you want to use Body Sack. The thing about the stage is that it's so long that Heathcliff ends up running out of ammo if you're not careful managing your ammo. So underneath the Body Sack is actually a Heathcliff skill 2, which is his most ammo-hungry skill. So you want to override skill 2 whenever possible with Body Sack just to save the ammo, because it doesn't do that much damage on the stage anyway. And then, you know, make sure you're not overriding skill 3 with, like, 4th Match Flame or anything. Other than that, it's pretty standard. Just clash with everything. Play it pretty safe while you're setting up. And for this setup, I had Ryoshu with 2 slots. You can also do it with Don with 2 slots. Either one of them is fine. Sinclair with 2 slots is pretty rough, but it might be doable. And then obviously Heathcliff with 2 is really, really tough because he runs out of ammo. So you don't want Heathcliff with 2. Anyways, we're going to be targeting one of the dogs. Just making sure we're not clashing with Sinclair to try and manipulate his sanity, get it down a little bit more. And we're just going to be making sure to use Ryoshu's skill 1 on the dogs because they're fatal to Slash Wrath. So they're quad fatal to it. It does like 50 damage a pop, very nice. And then, you know, we'll use our piercing skills on Big Snake here, get some chip damage on him. And slowly whittle down these 4-legged beasts. The thing about the 4-legged beasts is that when they get hit, they'll gain instinct. And once they hit a certain amount of instinct, they will gain the ability to use a stronger skill that is harder to clash with. That's why I have to use Ryoshu's skill 2 here to clash, because this skill is difficult to clash with. Where is it here? Tear Apart, I believe. Yeah, it's this one. This one is like super tough to clash with here. It's rough. So, you know, you basically yeah, so you want to clash with that thing with a stronger skill. They also gain fragile, by the way. Don't pay attention to the fragile. It's actually, I don't know if it's bugged. It might be intended, but I just call it bugged. The way that it works is the abnormality has a passive where, you know, once they hit a certain level of instinct, they will gain the ability to do the stronger move, and they'll gain fragile, and they'll gain damage up. The thing about the fragile is that the passive is the abnormality's passive. But when you hit the abnormality, you're hitting a body part. You're hitting the body of the abnormality, which is a body part. It is a separate body part, see? And the body part does not have the passive, alright? The abnormality has the passive. The body part does not have the passive. So this fragile is actually, like, it does not exist. Because it's on the abnormality, but you're hitting the body part. So the body part does not have the fragile on it. So you'll just never get the fragile. It's weird. So, you know, just clash with everything, you know, whatever. Other than that, you know, again, we're just slowly whittling these dudes down. We'll use a Ryoshu skill, we'll use a Ryoshu skill 3 here on this guy because we, just make sure you're counting with the 4th match flame passive. Every 4th ability that you use after, every 4th skill used gains 4 final power and inflicts burn. So, you know, we use the 4th match flame, then we use 1, 2 abilities, skills, then we use 3 and 4, and this, I Can Cook Anything, will be enhanced by the 4th match flame passive. So just make sure you're paying attention and sequencing your attacks correctly. That's my advice for that, because this will do a ton of damage, and you want to make sure you have it on the right skill. Besides that, I mean, don't be afraid to tank a little bit. Oh yeah, we're squeezing out a little bit of damage here with Dawn as well, just applying 2 fragile with Leap, so that our you know, Giga boosted skill 3 will deal a ton of damage to this guy. We just want to wipe them. We want to wipe out a dog or get it nearly killed. Excuse me. Come on. We want to wipe out a dog or get it nearly killed, you know, by like turn 4-ish. You know, so that's where we're looking at. We'll tank the Venom Glob or whatever, like the Paralysis Glob on Dawn because we don't really care. So yeah, this guy is pretty much dead to rights, and we've been chipping at this guy, so he gained instinct over time, and then we'll start working on that dude as well. So you know, just clashing. We'll use an ego to clash with the scary skill, and then we'll tank a paralysis, you know, just to finish off this dude. You can tank most of the the Slithering Inquisitor skills. Just to make sure that if you are to clash with any of them, you need to clash with any of them that say lose 1 instincts on clash lose. There's like 2 different ones, I think. Because you need to get it into the defensive as soon as possible to deal damage. So, you know, just make sure you win these clashes. You need to win these clashes no matter what. The other ones hardly matter. After that, we're left with 1 dude with, like, you know, pretty decent chunk of health, and then the Slithering Inquisitor has a pretty healthy arm. So the way that we want to manipulate this is going to be very, very finicky. The way that we manipulate this is, we want to, you know, we want to kill the dog, so we're just going to use rip space on it. But the Inquisitor's arm, we want to do solid chip damage to each. And then we want to get it as low as humanly possible without killing it. This is extremely important. You do not want to kill the arm here, but you need to stagger it bare minimum. And if possible, get it super, super low, like double digits. Or like you want to get it to like 30 if possible. So we're going to use quick suppression, and then we're going to use like fairly weak skills to get it as low as possible while making sure it doesn't die. And another thing, similarly to KQE's guard skill, this guard skill actually has a special property. Combat start, gain 1 instinct. So you want to make sure that you clash with it as soon as possible with your fastest sinner. That's why quick suppression is clashing with the guard skill, because when it gains 1 instinct, it loses defense level. The reason this stage takes so long is because the Slithering Inquisitor has 74 defense level, which means you'll do legit tickle damage to this thing. But once it gains instinct, once the Inquisitor gains instinct, it loses most of its defense level, so it becomes super squishy. So just make sure your fastest sinner clash with the guard skill so that it loses the defense level as soon as possible, so your other guys will actually do damage. So, you know, we get the arm as low as possible without killing it. The reason is, if one arm is usually the Inquisitor will guard with the same arm 2 turns in a row, then swap to the other arm, guard with that arm 2 turns in a row. We don't want this to happen, because that way it takes an extra turn in order for it to swap arms, because again, we want to make sure that the arm is guarding before we hit it, because then we'll actually deal any semblance of damage to it. So what we do is we stagger this arm so the other arm is forced to guard a turn early. And then our goal here, if possible, is to kill both of the arms this turn. It is very hard to do, and pretty much impossible for me to do in this run because I don't have support passive technology. But if possible, you want to be able to kill both of the arms on turn 6. That way it phase transitions on turn 7, and you can finish it off this turn. Unfortunately, again, I trolled my Sin resources, so I could not do it, so it took an extra turn to finish off this last arm here. But, you know, thankfully we see quick suppression in our future here. So we're using body sack, and we're just finishing off this dude and finishing off the arm. You want to overkill the arm. You genuinely do want to overkill the arm, because any damage it takes carries into the body on the next phase. So, you know, we finished off the dog, and then this turn is just a very standard quick suppression setup to finish off the Slithering Inquisitor on turn 8. So, you know, not bad. Could be better. Obviously, could be better. And again, 8 turns in, our Heathcliff still has plenty of ammo left. So, just make sure to manage your ammo. That's like the most important thing, I think. Just make sure to manage your ammo and you'll be okay. After that is Ichthys and Watchdog. This stage is actually super, super difficult because of the meta change. You don't have any pride because, you know, you used it all. Usually you would use it on K-Corp. So you can't use Ebony Stem, and you don't have Kurakumo, so you can't use him on Watchdog either. So this stage is actually really difficult. This took me probably 6 hours to get a 2-turn on. So if I were you, I'd take a 3. Honestly, I would take a 3 and I'd be happy with it. This took so long. Just because I would randomly lose coin tosses or whatever. It sucked. But this was the run that won it. There's so many different setups you can have that will get you a good result. I've had so many different runs that failed at the very end. You know, I've had runs where the Ichthys lives on 12 or the Watchdog lives on like 20 because I just like drop a coin randomly, like a 1 in 20 at max sanity, 1 in 20 chance to like drop a coin. And then it's just over. Like, you just roll tails on 1 quick suppression coin, and it's just like, okay, well, I guess the run's dead. So, this was the run that worked. You're basically looking for any combination of Shank, Suppress, you don't need like, there's so many different combinations, alright? So you can look for Shanks, usually. You want, like, ideally, like, 2. Suppress is nice to have, or you could just use Ardor Blossom Star twice. Like, you could use one this turn and then another Ardor next turn, and it works. Like, one of those runs that was turbo close was just 2 Ardor Blossom Stars, and one of them just, like, didn't roll heads, and the Ichthys lived on, like, 50 health. So, you know, whatever. Then you want Sinclair's, at least his skill 2. You'd prefer to have skill 3, obviously, but sometimes it just doesn't work, you know. Whatever. Then I Can Cook Anything, obviously, is very nice to have. Ideally, you'd have it in either the top slot, the coming next slot, or, you know, up here, so that you can use Ryoshu's base ego, because Ryoshu's base ego is actually really, really good for setups. People don't consider this as a setup tool, but it is turbo cheap, and Heads Hit gives you free Fragile next turn, which is absolutely phenomenal for a base ego. So just make sure you're paying attention to her base ego. It's actually good. And then Quick Suppression is pretty much mandatory to have. Otherwise, why are you bringing Heathcliff, you know? So you need, bare minimum for any of these setups, you need Quick Suppression, alright? The rest is like any combination of nuke skills and, you know, good skills. Ting Tang is always going to be hitting one of the fins, if possible, just to break it. And then after that, you can either choose to burst down the Ichthys or burst down the wolf first. I wouldn't recommend bursting them both equally because it's kind of like annoying, but again, the setup is basically you want to stagger the telepole if possible. Try not to break it. Sometimes it just doesn't work out though, you know. And other than that, you know, we're clashing with Body Sack here just to save some damage. And we're clashing with this, the right fin, which is, you know, not the powerful clap, just to, you know, get our stuff going here. We accidentally break the telepole because we deal too much damage to it. Oh well, you know, it's I Can Cook Anything, a supreme overkill, whatever. So, Quick Suppression, and what else is going over there? Ardor Blossom Star is enough to kill Headless Ichthys from 400. Quick Suppression will do about 220-ish, and Ardor Blossom Star will deal about 260-ish if it hits heads. So those two alone are enough to kill the Ichthys here at 416. Then Watchdog is pretty low because, again, last turn we used our Suppress, I believe. Yeah, we used Suppress and skill 2 on Sinclair, and I Can Cook Anything on Watchdog to burst it down. So, you know, we have 2 here, and then we just send the rest on Wolf, and we take a little bit of damage, but it's quite alright. We get there. So, you know, that, in the span of like 2 minutes or something, that was like 8 hours of attempts right there, like 6 to 8 hours. It was bad. Next is Kromer. At this point, I was just kind of fed up. Like, I did not want to fuck with Kromer. Kromer is probably my least favorite fight. She's just really boring. Like, the atmosphere of her fight in the story is like really good and whatever, but she's just boring to reset on. So I just kind of like took a 6 turn. The way the Kromer fight plays out is weird, because you either can take a 4 turn, which is really, really difficult, or you can take a 6 turn, which is really, like, pretty easy. It is, like, super weird. Because of the pacing of the fight, it is super, super weird to get a 5 turn. It is, like, extremely strange to try and get the setup for a 5 turn. So you're either going for a 4 turn or a 6 turn, and I chose to take the 6 turn just so I could enable my passives, because again, my Gluttony and Sloth are bad, so I want to enable my passives for the final stage, and I don't want to be resetting for a million years on Kromer. So this is the setup that I used. Just clashing with everything to start out with. Then we're looking for 2 slots on either Heathcliff or Chef. You could also probably make it work with Don, but I wouldn't really, I think ideally it's Heathcliff, or Chef is pretty good. Chef only works if you get 2 of her skill 3 though, which is really finicky. So I got super lucky, again, setting up with her base ego here for the next turn, and making sure we're clashing with the stun skill with Faust, so that Faust gets stunned. Then this turn we do our absolute best to stagger here. If we are going for the if we're going for the 4 turn, we do our absolute 100% best to kill Kromer's first phase here. It is extremely difficult and borderline impossible without support passives online. So I just didn't bother. It is, I'm like 90% sure it's like mathematically impossible. Unless you get God, like legit God RNG, which I'm not gonna sit around for. It is borderline impossible to get Kromer killed here without Ting Tang passive or Outis passive. So, you know, I just run it with this. Just to get her as low as possible, and she lives on 30. That's what I'm saying. Like, Ting Tang passive gets me there, you know? So, it is what it is. I'm just farming up some resources here, using some light skills. And then this turn, you know, this is the turn 5. We're just using all of our stuff and clashing with the scary stuff and then tanking the rest. And then turn 6 is very standard setup. You just run it. Kromer's second phase is super squishy. She's basically, her gimmick is just being a glass cannon. So, you know, as long as you're clashing with the super scary stuff, and then, you know, you can tank some of it, but she goes down really quick. So that's the 6th turn. Again, the 5 turn is super weird to set up. If you have the ability to get a 5 turn, just go for the 4 turn, in my opinion. But other than that, if you want to play it safe, go for 6. And here I make sure to use some gluttony skills. I use one here, and then the next turn I use another one, so I can get to that 5 gluttony and finally enable my Ting Tang passive, thankfully. So for this stage, I have my Gregor passive, because that's 5 sloth, and I have my Ting Tang and Outis passive, which is 5 gluttony, so we're all good. Moving into the final stage here. This stage, I was debating whether or not to go for 5. Previously, before Sinclair, the highest you could, or the lowest you could get was 6. As far as I'm aware, but now it's possible to get 5 with new Sinclair, but it's really tight, and at this point I was like done, and I was like, okay, I like my score, dude, whatever. What you're looking for in this setup is, you want Sinclair's skill 3, you want the gripping, and you want quick suppression, either this turn or the next turn, preferably this turn, obviously, but it could be whatever. So you go for the gripping on Guido, just to set it up for skill 3 next turn. Sinclair, just clash. If you win the clash, you inflict karma randomly, but if you lose the clash, you lose sanity, and you rotate the skill out, and you get the karma onto Sinclair, so you can, you know, target redistribute it, which is very nice. Skipping past the shopkeeper variants again. So, besides that, just clash. You know, hope that your karma lands favorably. Whatever this skill is, I literally don't care. Tank it, don't matter. So Sinclair loses the clash. You know, we lose a little bit of sanity, but it's fine. Here, what we're gonna do is we're going to use execution, and we're going to use Sinclair's skill 3 on Guido. That will like really make sure he dies. And then other than that, just clashing again, use body sack to save your ammo. It hardly makes a difference. We have infinite ego resources at this point. Besides, you know, we want to watch our sloth and gluttony, but nothing uses sloth and gluttony pretty much in this team comp. So, you know, other than that, we're just trying to break the Buddha Murti. You know what it is. Transition to the next phase here. Just keep in mind, one thing to keep in mind, once the statue is in this phase, when you break the Buddha Murti, and it goes like indiscriminate chaotic mode, karma does not get transferred on hit. This is really, really important to keep in mind, because if you're doing like karma funneling strats where you're tanking the karma attacks and then putting it onto a specific target, karma does not get transferred on hit while the statue is in this broken phase. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind. Other than that, we're just gonna keep clashing to apply the karma. And then, you know, we're just clashing again, you know, just keeping in mind, you know, Heathcliff got some karma, we'll put it on him, and then we'll phase transition again. Unfortunately, he hit 108 at the end of the last turn, so this turn, the statue could have been vulnerable. I wish, you know, I wish. But, you know, we'll just burn a turn here. I use the defensive skill here, so that Sinclair... I use defensive skill and I clash with his skill 1 to make sure Sinclair gets sanity so that he doesn't corrode, because next turn I'm looking to end the fight. So I don't want him to corrode, so I want to make sure that I have enough sanity. Other than that, you know, we're setting up with the gripping. We've saved that gripping forever, by the way. Yeah, we saved that thing since turn 2. Like, you want to save this second gripping. Use the first gripping on Guido, turn 1. Save the second gripping the whole time. You know, just let it sit there. Let it sit there. And then when you're going for the pop-off turn, use your gripping that you stashed away on the part that you're going to target, which is the Buddha Murti, because it has, like, 20 health. And then the next turn, after the dude dies to the karma, we just basically go off very standard textbook setup here. You know, I don't care about these clashes because the Buddha Murti will get broken very easily as soon as it gets touched. So the clashes don't matter. I'm just using it to make sure I'm attacking in the correct order. I want to use skill 2 before skill 3, obviously, because we want skill 3 to have the least amount of sanity possible. And other than that, you know, just overclocking the teddy bear to give yourself that tiny bit of extra rip space damage. And this is the final setup for my form Empties. We massively overkill, by the way. This is before Sinclair attacks with his skill 3. So, you know, if this guy had died, because he's sitting at 108 on turn 5. If he had died, we would have had it. A turn 5 kill. But, you know, I'll take it. I'll take it. So, you know, the first hit of Self-Destructive Purge will finish off the statue. And these are, you know, the screenshots of the final stats. And that is the end of the run. So, you know, this is gonna be one hell of a fucking video to upload. And timestamp, but you know, that is the Railway retrospective. I hope you enjoyed all my Railway 1 content. You know, it's a lot, and I can't wait until Railway 2 shows up in like late August or whenever. Like, I don't remember when it is, but if you're going for low turns now, fucking get it, bro. Get it. I believe in you. You would have to play a lot, though, unless you've already started a run. So, those are all of my strategies in depth for every single stage. If you're doing low turns now, Godspeed, bro. Godspeed. Feel free to steal my strategy. I don't care, bro. I don't care. But that is how I did it. And I hope that you enjoyed, or, you know, if you fell asleep to my videos, because, you know, sometimes I fall asleep to my own videos. You know, good night, sweet dreams, and take care.